What is ultimate reality? Yeah, a foundational question. A lot of the other questions that I've been answering have kind of assumed that we all know what ultimate reality is. So I'm sorry if this is your question and you've been waiting for the last however many days to get it answered. So ultimate reality, in brief, we can think of like the building blocks of reality. It's that which is really happening before anybody comes along and observes it. So when we observe reality, the observation of it tends to do this function of compacting it and turning it into concepts, turning it into things which are easier and clunkier to observe than just the individual building blocks. So like we already said, our eye, the sensitive part of our eye, is not capable, it's not sensitive enough to perceive the impingement of just one particle of materiality. It's not sensitive enough to perceive ultimate reality. It's only sensitive enough to perceive the impingement of a big chunk of materiality. So just the fact of light being detected at the eye has already compacted reality into a coarse enough form that we can perceive it. And for most of us, we would think that was very, very subtle, right? Like one impingement of light at the eye, that's very subtle. Then what we tend to do is compact it even more into clunky objects that we can name and conceptualize. And we call that our conceptual reality. So for most of us, when we've perceived the world through our five senses and through these concepts that we've made out of what we've experienced through the five senses, our entire lived existence has been in this compacted, conventional, conceptual reality. Everything that we perceive has been distorted and compacted and made more coarse by our observation of it. But when the wisdom is sharp enough, it is possible to directly perceive these individual building blocks of reality without compacting them. Now, some people get confused because obviously these individual building blocks are still being perceived. If they weren't perceived, we wouldn't be able to know that they were there. So we are still perceiving them, but we're perceiving them on the level that the object, the building block, is not being influenced by the perception. So when we make a concept, the object, the concept, let's say we see an apple. So the apple is an object that we've compacted through our eyes, and then we've compacted through our conceptualization. And so the object, the apple, is in a sense invented or certainly distorted by our perception, right? There's a causal relationship between the perception and the apple, and apple essentially doesn't exist without the perception of it. Something exists, but not the apple. These building blocks, however, they are existing independent of the perception of them. They're existing if they're perceived, and they're existing if they are not perceived. They're the building blocks of reality, and indeed, perception itself is one of those building blocks. So that's what ultimate reality is. The easiest way to think about it is the building blocks of reality. What's really, really happening independent of our tendency to conceptualize and compact things. Any questions about that?